QA for Jira and 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It's just simple. In our work we encountered 4 major testing problems that the QA for Jira plugin solves. And now we will show you how to do it.
4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Today we will talk about the third horseman, reporting. How it looks like in QA for Jira. Test plans, test cases, tabular metrics. How did you organize it? Several levels of reporting. Here these metrics are something that catches the eye of the first person who manages the tests, because he is at the highest level of the structure. In example, on the test plan. What is this? It is a tabular representation of what actually happens inside our tests. Here we have information how these tests are divided into which test suite, how many test cases are assigned to a specific test suite, information on the execution of these test cases, in example, the results of the test cases and the number of bugs reported within each test suite and the number of requirements connected to our tests. Tabular metrics, which additional functions you have introduced. I checked, I saw, and I have to ask about it, because it is quite an interesting solution. It is a navigation that allows us to move to the selected part of the tests. The test suite we are interested in. We go one step down in our test structure, or so-called drill down, get to the data on the basis of which test metrics are built. If we have a value that is not 0, this value is a link that refers us to those specific issues that are hidden under the number presented in this table. Oh, okay. Well, and in addition, a few functional facilities that will allow us to find out what is happening in a specific part of our tests. If we select an area of several areas of interest at the level of these metrics, 2 things happen. First, the subtotal line shows what is happening in the fragment of the test that we have marked, without losing the link to the overall summary. These values can always be compared on a regular basis, and the filter is automatically created that causes this selection to be transferred to all other reports that we will use. Of course, this selection is flexible. We can select all, deselect all, and we have an input state that shows all test suites in our tests. This is an interesting solution, because we have this navigation at our fingertips. This is a desktop where we have everything gathered in one point. You can get directly or indirectly to any place of our tests. Okay, today's episode is about a rider called reporting. There are several of these reports that you can generate in QA. I would like to ask for a test case report. How is it built? What does it look like? Yes, if we turn to test metrics, we have a compilation of several reports. We have 2 tables. The first one tells about what happened in the days when the test cases were performed. How many of them were performed and with what result. The second table is the test case execution log. Here, each test case execution goes to this table with a specific date, a specific result. Here we can find out precisely when a specific test case was performed. This, of course, can be properly filtered, sorted. Each table that we have built into QACraft has sorting and filtering implemented in advance. And it's quite complex, that allows you to filter several times. It is quite a complex tool, but is very transparent. Yes, it is very clear. The basic functionalities are intuitive, the tables look very nice. Yes, look very pretty, that's true. This is another plus of QACraft. These solutions just look nice. Not only are they functional and efficient, they are also nice. Tomek, during the tests, as you know, there are bugs. How the reports in the case of bugs in QACraft behave? Returning to the test cases for a moment, the graphs should be mentioned. Tabular data is not enough. It would be nice to see some data in the form of charts. Here we have two basic graphs that shows us the number of test cases performed on the day on which whatever happened with the division into the result of the execution of these test cases and the log. Timeline that shows us each day regardless of whether any action was taken or not. Here you can see that we had a large pause in testing. Here was one test case, one here, two here. What more about these charts? They are customizable, dynamic. First of all, they allow you to manipulate the length of the x-axis, so we can zoom in out of this graph and we can manipulate the data series. For example, we don't need two data series. This way we can unmark them from our chart. They disappear. Of course, this operation is reversible. Here we see everything back. A couple of pie charts that show how many of our cases were made in total, and those that were done with what result. These pie charts also allow you to discover or hide a certain series of data. Firstly, further tables do not show anything. Secondly, the form of charts. In example, simply a clear form in its purest form. Okay, what about bug reporting? As for bugs, the situation is quite similar to the test cases, but we also have a division into tabular reports and charts. But here, these tables look a bit different. This means that all the time the basic table layout is kept, while the first table is an aggregate of all bugs divided into priorities. She has two modes that show us only bugs IDs, and when we switch to expanded mode, we have every bug listed in its summary. Dynamically, breakdown, number of bugs. Each bug is obviously a link that can be moved to. The second table is a log of our bugs, shows when each bug was reported. A similar situation to the test case. Full log. If there was a bug reported from our testing, it is listed here. And a few charts. Exactly. I was to ask if also in the form of charts. Sure. We have the number of bugs reported. Two graphs in a slightly different perspective showing similar data. The top chart shows the number of bugs reported in each day and the number of bugs resolved on a given day. The bottom graph is a stacked graph showing bugs created and bugs resolved. This is a very frequently used chart in tests that shows the dynamics of reported bugs and how to fix them. Generally, when we are at the end of testing, these lines should meet. That we achieved perfect condition. Yes, it means that we no longer report bugs, but the number of bugs resolved tends to the number of bugs reported. And of course, pie charts that present bugs broken down by their status. Whether they were taken or resolved. The next chart breaks down bugs by priority. QAcraft is a very flexible tool, but what does the test requirements coverage report look like? This is the test coverage report. This table takes down data from two sources. The first source is what we define at the beginning of our test as our set of requirements. In a moment, I will show you where it is done in a fairly easy way. The second source of data, on the other hand, are those requirements that someone has associated with test cases during the test duration or design. And here we have a breakdown that tells us two things. What we see in red in the lower part of the table, these are the requirements that have not been handled by anyone yet. There is no test case that supports a specific requirement. On the other hand, in the upper ones displayed in black, you can see that each of these requirements is handled by a specific number of test cases. How many test cases are supported by the given requirement can be seen in the total column, while here you can see the breakdown with which these test cases ended, if they were performed. Each value that is presented in this table is a reference to the data that these tables build. And going back to the sources where it comes from, it arises at the test plan level. At the bottom of our test plan, we have a QAcraft requirements section that allows us to define our set of requirements, and these requirements are presented in the form of an ordered structure, a tree. We talked about it in one episode about structure management. These tree structures appears everywhere in QAcraft. Wherever we can show any hierarchy, we do it in tree form. Here you can see a dozen or so requirements grouped. The requirements are taken from two different projects. When we extend them, you can see the whole tree. You can see how many of them we have. At any time, we can enter a specific project also in the form of a tree. We can choose the requirements that, for example, we should add here. For example, when I add a requirement and write it down, this requirement appears as connected with our test, specifically with our test plan. Since no test case for this has yet been created, it appears here as red. It is not yet resolved by any test case. Tell me, if the test case coverage report is visible in QAcraft as a chart, is a tree structure also used, which is more precise when presenting element. Here we are relying on this particular table, and when it comes to any charts, I think it would be easy to get. Because the library we use to build charts, as long as it has access to a reliable data source, then builds these charts immediately. Immediately marks the day in the software development process. Well, we talk about the different types of reports, but I am interested in the main report, numerical dashboard. How it looks like in QACraft for Jira, how is it built? For example, when we test a large project, it is often supported by several test plans. As a reminder, QACraft can simultaneously handle how many test requirements? Easy over 1000 and the efficiency is over 10,000. Requirements or test cases? Requirements. We have not tested the upper limit, but thousands are achievable. And how many test cases? Our clients work on a maximum of 1,500 test cases. This is what we actually encountered in one test plan. We did 20,000. I can check what would happen if someone tried to extend the test plan. Coming back to this report. Because QACraft can have its own project which includes test plans or link its tools to any existing Jira project, and there may also be several test plans. If we click on the tree or on this level our project, we get to dashboards that allow us to choose one or more test plans. For example, we will take two and try to generate our tests. One click resulted is the creation of tables and charts. Here we have information on what we have seen before, broken down into the test case metrics, bugs metrics, but aggregated data from several test plans. This dashboard will of course be expanded with standard test metrics. I think it will grow up a bit. Maybe we will try to allow for a more precise configuration, report tuning, adapting to the needs of a specific person who will want to generate this report. But as we can see, it's a very clear report, very nice constructed. There will be no problem with the correct reading of data and results. The advantage of this report is that we have all these metrics, all data on bugs and test cases in one place. We don't need to look for this in our test plan. One click and generate it. And try to generate our tests. One click resulted is the creation of tables and charts. Here we have information on what we have seen before, broken down into the test case metrics, bugs metrics, but aggregated data from several test plans. This dashboard will of course be expanded with standard test metrics. I think it will grow up a bit. Maybe we will try to allow for a more precise configuration, report tuning, adapting to the needs of a specific person who will want to generate this report. But as we can see, it's a very clear report, very nice constructed. There will be no problem with the correct reading of data and results. The advantage of this report is that we have all these metrics, all data on bugs and test cases in one place. We don't need to look for this in our test plan. One click and generated.